Welcome to week 6 of market research, the week in which your briefing notes and briefing materials take place after you've submitted your first assessment task, but before you have any results and feedback from the task. Now, first up, the to-do list for the week. It's chapter 7. This is the experiment chapter. This is the first of the equation-heavy, maths-oriented science foundation chapters. Look, there's going to be a temptation to skip over the equations and skip over the formula. Try to resist. As with everything, the notion of the whole course is the non-compulsory elements, but seriously here, if you can find yourself just looking at how the notation takes place, how the notation is used, and thinking about, well, what is the purpose of this notation? How does this as a language assist me in talking to other marketers and talking to other social scientists? Second thing about this chapter that you need to be really aware of is that we're now heading into a territory that has a lot of finite definitions. Now, the thing about marketing is that one of our criticisms we constantly receive is that we're full of jargon, that we have incomprehensible phrases, slang and everything else that goes with the territory. If your attitude towards the way the text has been written is to go, oh, it's full of jargon, it's full of, why do we need this language? And you can honestly say it's full of it. The reason we need this is that what we say and the precision with which we can say it determines what other people will understand. And particularly when it comes to experimentation, there are a lot of elements in here when we start talking about how causation and correlation, when we start talking about elements of the experimental design, when we start talking about causality, we need that certainty. We need to make certain that everyone who either is reading our work or who we're talking to about our work, or when we're reading someone else's studies and their designs, that we are agreed pretty much on what we're saying. Now, the big thing that comes out of this chapter, which you also need to sort of get yourself used to the concept, is that causality is only implied. There is no certainty in experimental design. At best, we can say that we can infer X is one of the causes of Y. The thing is that what we prefer to be able to say is that X causes Y. We'd like to have certainty, and for the most part you'll hear a lot of people actually using certainty and using the language of if X then Y, and using a way of phrasing things to say, well, this is cause and effect. Now the problem here is that this is not what happens in market research. We deal with really complex tasks, and we have a certain level of inbuilt uncertainty in the design anyway, and the whole idea that causality can only ever be implied rather than actually proved once and for all, quite often problematic for outsiders, quite often problematic as a conceptual framework to come to terms with in the first place. Now, in terms of your tasks and what you actually have to do for this week, so chapter 7 is the readings. You've had your briefing on what to deal with and how to expect to cope with it. You're going to do the first of your exercise problems this series. Now, the exercise problems obviously need a different style of answer than what you were using for the exercise questions. You also have only 2 questions this week. It's an exercise problem and a group discussion. The idea here is that you're going to get hit pretty hard next week, so you might want to read ahead, move up in advance. The other thing is that the experimental chapter honestly is one of the ones where there's going to be more processing required. You have to read it a few times, you have to go back. And the question that you have been asked to talk about specific situations for experimental design, this is forcing you to go back, review, revise, and revisit an area that you could otherwise see as quick to skim over, gloss over, and depart. Now, The other thing on the status of the course, just a reminder, if you would be so kind as to fill out that exam survey if you haven't already done so. If you have provided feedback, thank you. We did hold the class vote on Friday. Now, I had in week 4 about 25 people in the room who elected to push the vote on the questions back a week. I then had 13 people in the week that the vote took place. Probably most of the people who were at the vote weren't the people in the room who pushed back the vote. So either you didn't want the responsibility, or you hadn't actually factored your timing out as well as you thought you did. Or you planned it perfectly and you abstained by not being in the room. However it played out, the group assignment now is down to 6 questions. The 6 questions that did make it through the cutoff will be in the PowerPoint slides, discussed again in the lectures, and probably at least talked about briefly in the pre-record. The other aspect of this week that's of interest to you is that the tutorial kits are currently in the hands of the marking team. That is myself and the 2 tutors. We've got them, we're marking them as fast as is humanly possible, and we are marking to a principle of reward, recognition of following instructions and doing the right thing, and guidance for future development. The idea we have is that if you've done the right thing by us and you followed the instructions, then you should get the points that you deserve. If there's opportunity for us to guide you to say, look, you could do this better next time, we'll provide that guidance. We also want to put in some level of praise and recognition that for doing the right thing. Quite often I've in my courses that if you get the HD, you get no comments or feedback, or you do well, you don't necessarily know why or how get the positive reinforcement. We're going to try and make certain that that's present this time. And finally, the last thing I want to touch on is you've now completed your first assessment task. You're now deep into semester. And I've picked up a couple of things from the cohort over the last couple of weeks, and one of the issues I want to address pretty much straight up, the face to camera mode, is it's okay to be enjoying the subject. There's a sort of sense coming through that people are starting to feel either a little bit guilty about, look, this is fun, I'm enjoying myself, or there was an expectation that this subject is one of those subjects you're not supposed to like, so if you do like it, there's something wrong with you, or it's like research, man, that's like stats, and stats is bad. Look, if you're enjoying it, it's okay. You're allowed to. It's fine. If you're not enjoying it, look, that's also equally valid. What I'm interested in is letting you feel however you want to feel about this course. There is so much flexibility in here. Some of you are just probably craving some certainty and craving some guidance and framework and structure, in which case just start asking me for it and I will be able to provide some more scaffolding and frameworks. But some of you will be finding this moment of going, yeah, this isn't what I was expecting, or it's not as bad as I was expecting, or I'm doing better at it, or something like that. And if you're feeling uncertain about, it's okay to like it, yeah, it is. It's just one of those things that we quite often talk ourselves down and talk ourselves out of either achieving because we think, no, we can't, or enjoying because we think, no, we shouldn't. So if you're having fun, congrats. If you're not having fun, well, I'll say congrats. Basically, this thing's either matching what you like and what you want, or it's not matching what you like and what you want. Either way, whatever your response is, it's completely valid. And last thing to say this week is in regard to the tutorial kits. According to Waddle, I have 85 enrolled students. We were in possession of 82 out of the 85 tutorial kits as of 5 p.m. on Saturday. That is the highest single response rate I have ever had for an assessment task. We had an incredibly good run with this. I'm really grateful that you delivered on time, you appear to have delivered on budget in terms of word count allocations. Look, to have nearly a 96% compliance rate with the request is amazing, and I really do appreciate that. Look, if we can keep this up for the rest of the semester, you are going to be one of the most amazing cohorts I've had the opportunity and privilege to work with, because that level of on-time delivery is just brilliant. So we got another one coming up in week 7. Really appreciate what you did for week 5 for getting in on time. I also appreciate the fact that in the 2-hour lecture I was refreshing the number of submissions. I was actually checking the start, middle and end of class, how many people submitted. The trust that you have shown in me by feeling confident that you could miss being in the room in that lecture and take that time to submit your assessment task. I know that in previous iterations of the courses I've run that I've played a few tricks on the people who weren't in the room, and I've said that I wasn't going to do that this season, and that you've trusted me, so I do appreciate that as well. So thank you for that part of the course. And from here we've got 2 weeks, just under 2 weeks till the next task is due. You did really well getting everything in on time for round 1. Let's do this again for round 2. Let's aim for, we can actually aim for 100%. We can aim for everybody who's in this course to get this thing in on time for rounds 2 and 3. So give it your best shot, see what you can do, and so thank you everyone for participating and being part of tutorial kit A.